All right, it is WKRK, 1320 AM, 105.5 FM, cable TV channel 25, and country.am. I think I got them all covered now.
I think that's all.
Yeah, I'm the sheriff's sitting here watching me count my fingers to make sure I read them all correctly, because I get lost every once in a while because we have a huge list of things to read now.
There you go. We need to figure out some way of condensing that down into just one announcement where you don't have to remember all of them.
That's right. Donna has it taped up here on the computer, so she can.
That's how she cheats all the time.
She has her cheat sheet up here on the computer.
I wondered how she rattled those off so quick every time I was here, and now I know it's on the computer.
I forget to look up there, and she's a lot better at that than I am.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Sheriff?
I'm doing well. Doing very good. It's a beautiful day outside today, sun shining. Looks like it's going to be 80 degrees or a little more, and I think we should have done a broadcast live from a bass boat somewhere today.
You know, that's not a bad idea. We may just have to do that.
We may have to do that one Monday.
A live remote from a boat.
There you go.
That kind of rhymes.
Yeah.
Remote from a boat. Okay, I like that.
Well, they do it at football games. If you can do it from a football game, I think we should be able to do it from a bass boat somewhere.
Absolutely. We'll make that technology work.
There you go.
Just have onboard power, and that'll be a fun time. Yeah, I enjoyed the weather yesterday outside quite a bit, and just looked up at the beautiful sunshine, and I think we got to close to 80 or 81 yesterday.
Yeah. We had a good time this weekend. We went to Pigeon Forge this weekend in Gatlinburg in that area. We went to the Orange and White game at Tennessee Saturday and spent the day there. And we didn't know this till we got there, though. They had the race going on in Bristol on Saturday. The Blue Angels were in Knoxville on Saturday. The Orange and White game, and then it was Rod Run on top of that. So
I saw a lot of those pictures on Facebook.
It was very hectic over there. A lot of traffic, a lot of people.
I did get a bulletin from, I guess it's the Tennessee Department of Transportation, talking about how slow the road was between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, that they were having a lot of congestion this
I know
weekend.
at the air show there in Knoxville, Saturday morning when we were getting ready for the Tennessee game and stuff, they were talking about even early, and even on Sunday morning also, early Sunday morning, the show didn't start till like 11 o'clock, and at 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, traffic was already backing up miles long, 3 or 4 hours before the event. So I know that it was very difficult to get all those people in and out with all the different events that were going on over there, and just a hectic day, a lot of people, but we had a good time. We had a good time over there this weekend. All
right. Before we get too carried away, I want to take a moment to say hello to your mother. She and I were emailing back and forth this week. She is such a sweet lady.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
and she
that.
said to make sure to keep you in line.
You'll do that.
That was a hard job.
That's the power of the radio, though.
That's right.
You can just edit things and clip them together and say all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, she is a sweet lady, and it was nice to connect with her on email.
Well, thank
this
you.
week.
I appreciate that.
All right. We were talking about Pigeon Forge. We've had a lot of wildfires. I think Pigeon Forge had some. You were talking about Cherokee, and here in Cherokee County, we've had some.
When we came
fires.
back across the mountain last night, coming back into Cherokee, we noticed that on the left over there, as you're coming out of the park down into Cherokee on the left-hand side over on the mountain up there were the whole top of the mountain was ablaze. And when we come around the backside, we actually went up by the casino and came out that way.
Right.
And on the back side of the mountain at the casino, you can see where it crossed the mountain coming down that side. And I just checked Facebook a few minutes ago. Chief Lambert had put out that the fire is still going. I know last night it was at 9 o'clock. It was like 50-plus acres then. I don't know where they're at today on the acreage, but it's still going over there on the reservation itself. And so they're encouraging everybody that lives over in that area to stay indoors, and if you have breathing problems, things of that nature. And, I think there's some special events outside today in Cherokee. They've kind of canceled some of those. The smoke was so thick. So, we just pray for those people over there and hope that they get that fire contained before it does too much damage.
What seems to be the contributing factor to these wildfires?
Well, one thing is just the dry weather is what starts most of these fires. However, when you got winds driving that and behind it, the April winds, anytime you get more than 10, 15 mile an hour winds driving those fires, they can spread very quickly. And the hotter they get and the bigger they are, the faster they spread. So the wind is the big issue that really drives them, that makes them so hard to contain, so hard to control. As long as the wind is calm, fire crews can usually contain things pretty quickly, can get around things pretty quickly. Even when you call in tankers and stuff, doing flybys, dropping water, they can drop water on fires and get them put out pretty quickly. But when the wind's driving it, by the time they drop water and can get another load and get back around, it's already pushed it past that point to a different point. They just have to keep trying to stay ahead of it. And so the winds is the big factor.
Right. Right now, it's not the best time to be doing some outdoor burning.
No, one thing that we also like to let people know about the fires and the fire issue is that if you're going to burn outdoors, the recommendation is not to burn within further than 100 feet of your house, to stay within 100 feet or closer. And you have a fire hose, also a water hose with that, to where if the fire starts spreading outside the boundaries, you can put it out quickly before it gets too big. Like I say, while it's smaller, you can still control it. You can still kind of put it out. But once it gets big and once it gets outside those boundaries, the bigger it gets, the harder it is to control. And so they encourage to keep those water hoses there. Get burning permits. We discussed that a little bit earlier also. Burning permits are good in a lot of different areas. One is so the Forest Service and the Sheriff's Office too, and the fire departments around knows what fires are controlled burns and where the burning's taking place at. So if our 911 dispatch gets calls of smoke in the air, if someone just sees smoke behind a mountain somewhere and they call the possible fire, then you can do cross references to those burning permits and see whether there's a fire schedule to be burning that area, whether it's controlled or not. So we're not dispatching fire departments out to a lot of different places where they don't need to go.
Right.
And so that helps to get them to the right places where they need to go, but not send them places where they don't need to go.
And those burn permits, they don't cost any money.
They don't.
It's basically just a notification to say this is where burning is going to be taking place.
And you can actually do those online now. And so you can actually just fill them out online and submit them. If you don't have internet capabilities, you can go to the Tusquity office down here in Murphy on Harshaw Road and get burning permit down there also.
Okay. All right. One of the press releases we received last night actually was about an arrest of a man who was possessing and selling marijuana and liquid codeine.
Right.
And anytime we post anything about marijuana, the floodgates open up on our comments section. And I noticed one of the comments was saying, why would you want to ruin this man's life over, something that's grown? How do you respond? I know you probably get attacked a lot by...
Well, there's a couple of different things that people need to realize about this also. And one thing is, a lot of those comments you get, if you go back and look at those comments, a lot of those comments are not even people from our area. There are people that live in other states, live in other places, is where a lot of these comments come from. But one thing we do need to also realize about this is if it was just the marijuana, then I could half-heartedly agree with you if it was just marijuana. The part of me that doesn't agree is that in North Carolina marijuana is still illegal.
Right.
And it's a violation of the law, and we have to enforce those things. But the other part of that is why we still go after this and why we still are vigilant about enforcing these things is because it's never just marijuana.
Right.
Anytime we deal with the marijuana and the sale and delivery of that, and it's money that's been cash crop that's been out there, there's always other drugs associated with that. And when you talk about this, we're not talking about people who, even though it's bad enough in itself, we're not talking about teenagers who are sitting around with marijuana joint smoking it. We're talking about people who are buying this stuff in bulk, who are selling it in bulk, who are making tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars off of this crop that's out there. And people say, well, it's legal in other places. Well, move where it's legal. Go where it's legal if you want to be legal. And the thing about it is this, and I heard Ted Cruz talking about this on television this morning. One of the things that happens is the federal government has kind of over-regulated things, and they leave things up to the states. The states have individual rules and laws and things for a reason, and it's up to each individual state to determine what's legal and what's illegal. And so if you don't like what North Carolina does as far as the laws, then you need to petition legislation. You need to go out there and have the laws changed, and you need to talk to your local representatives and things of that nature and get them to introduce legislation that will change the laws. But as long as it's still against the law, we're going to enforce it. And we're going to do that. And I always equated, and I may have mentioned on the radio before, I'm not sure if I have, but I always equated it kind of like with the seatbelt law. If there is a law that I don't agree with and a law that I don't like, it's the seatbelt law. And the reason I don't agree with that law and don't like it is because I feel like as a 44-year-old male A grown man driving down the road, I bought the car, I paid for it. If I want to take a chance on running into a tree and running my head through the windshield and killing myself, I feel like that it's my own business, that I don't need the government telling me I have to wear a seatbelt. However, it's the law. And since it's the law, when I get in the car, I put on my seatbelt because it's the law.
Right.
And so marijuana is kind of the same way. And these drugs, it's still against the law. So we are to be law-abiding citizens. We're supposed to be citizens of laws and regulations and rules. Right. And if we're ever going to maintain a country, that we have to have laws, we have to have regulations, we have to have rules, and we have to live by those things. So as long as it's the law, as long as it's the rules, that's what we're going to enforce.
I think a lot of people also use the media pages to, whether it be Facebook or Twitter, to push an agenda. And a lot of the people that comment are trying to, I guess, push their views on other people.
Right.
And I see that everywhere we go, people just, no matter what the subject, people want to win an argument.
Well, one thing I said before is a lot of those people making those comments are not people that live here in Cherokee County.
Right.
And in addition of just people having strong opinions, and there are people that just surf the internet looking for things to wade into, to voice their opinion. But in addition to having just strong opinions, there are paid lobbyists that monitor media sites, that monitor these things for these type of press releases.
Right.
So that they can get on there to stir their own agenda. They can get on there and spark conversations and stir their own agenda, because they are currently trying to get laws changed and legislation. They're trying to get these things done. So they go out here and they purposely make comments and purposely get into arguments to get everybody stirred up and to get everybody riled up, so that people will be more vocal and that people will contact their representatives and contact their people to voice their opinion. So we need to be real careful of that also. And I'm always real bad. I took several personality tests in my life, and even when I went to the sheriff's school and to training out there, we did a personality test for employment purposes, to kind of a supervisor's class, to determine how we deal with our employees and different personalities and things of that nature. One of my personality, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I started calling it a flaw, but it may not be a flaw, but it's just the way I am. One of my characteristics, my personality is that I want to help people so much and care about what people think so much that I want to make everybody happy. I want everybody to be happy with what I'm doing. And when we talk about like citizens of the county and running for this office, a lot of times in my life I have to watch myself, because there might be 27,000 people out there that are happy, but if there's 10 that call my office that are not happy, it just ruins my life. It just makes my day terrible, because I've got 10 calls of people that's not happy. And so I'm constantly trying to make those 10 people happy and trying to make those 10 people satisfied with what we're doing as an office and those type of things. And what we have to be real careful of sometimes is when we see these things on the internet and we see these comments that are on there, we have to be real careful, because sometimes when we wade into those things, we will wade into their world. Right. We'll wade into things for people who just want to argue, for people who just want to voice an opinion. And one thing I have really learned about social media and learned about these things is you're better off not to even wade into that conversation. Right. You're better off not to even have a conversation with them, because you're not going to change their mind. You're not going to change their view. You're not going to change their opinion. So why have a 100-post, 3-hour conversation with somebody that's not going to change their mind anyway?
Right.
And so what happens is it just sparks that conversation and gets all this stuff rolling. And if we don't watch it, we'll get so engrossed with that. We'll get so engrossed with that conversation that we'll think that we're in the wrong or we're doing something wrong, when in reality, that's just one person's opinion. That's just what that person thinks about it.
And I can completely relate to when we first started doing our Facebook, and we'd post a press release, then someone would comment something that was just really nasty toward us for even posting such, a press release, and that used to just wreck my day. And then it just happened so often. I stopped, commenting, replying to them. They're entitled to their opinion. That was my thing. But just I could not take the time to continue arguing with everyone who wanted to argue on our page. So, but it would just completely wreck my day, knowing that there was somebody out there that was unhappy with something that we had posted, even if it was fact. And one of the things I always try to post on the press releases too, that all suspects are presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. But the fact is that they were arrested for that charge, whether they're proven guilty or not. That is a press release that is accurate.
And, you know, I had somebody call last week about a couple of these press releases that went out, wanting me to block a press release and not release a person's name or not to put out there that they were arrested. A couple of things about that. One is when we process people through the jail, there's some automatic posts and automatic things that go out for public consumption. And so a lot of those things, it's not that somebody is actually sitting down and writing things out and handing them to the radio station or to the newspapers. It's just that through our process and through the computerized systems, it's an automatic generation of a press release coming out into some of those places where we add things to it, you know, and change them a little bit. But the other thing, you know, I tried to get this person to understand is we have to be fair to all people, and we have to be fair to the people that's out there. So if things are newsworthy and if things are coming out in these press releases, like you said, that somebody had been arrested, we can't just pick and choose of who we're going to put out and who we're not and say, well, this is a certain family or this is a certain group, so I'm not going to put their name out there. But this person over here, in my opinion, is a nobody, so I'm going to blast them all over Facebook. But we really can't do those things because with these press releases and criteria of things that are newsworthy, we have to be fair across the board and make sure that we get this stuff out. And it wouldn't be fair to all those people that we put out there on Facebook and doing these press releases, and not just Facebook, but the news medias and television and radio and all these different things of putting these things out there if we're going to intentionally withdraw other people and say we're not going to release their name. We're going to protect these people. So we can't get in the habit of doing that and protecting people based on who they are.
Right.
And so we have to be fair across the board with
no
that.
Picking favorites.
No picking favorites on that. So, you know, and even though it's hard sometimes, and I've even had people, you know, that we've done press releases on that I was friends with, you know, that I've went to church with, that, you know, that may be family related in some form. But the fact of the matter is that it still has to be done. It still has to go out there. And there's a public records law and things that we can't hide people from public records, and we can't hide them from the media, and we can't hide them from other places. So when you start doing stuff like that, it's when you start getting in trouble. So we need to just be fair across the board and do it the way we're doing it.
I think if people understand the purpose of the press releases and news release, it's not to ruin someone's life or reputation, but the people who live in our community need to know what kind of criminal activities are going on around them. They need to protect their kids, themselves, and
well, I kind of got off point there. Just 1 second. I want to go back to the marijuana issue. You asked me the question about the importance of that and why we enforce it and all those kind of things. And it's just a plant, all those kind of things. But when we think about this, when you think about opium and heroin, it's just a plant too. It's just a plant that grows. When you think about cocaine, it's just a plant. And so people want to pull marijuana off to the side because they like marijuana or they smoke marijuana and say it's different than everything else. It's just a plant. Well, these other drugs come from just plants too, you know, and so we really can't make that distinction between that. But going back to that original question again, just like this gentleman that we arrested for the marijuana, one of our officers witnessed a sale and delivery, a hand-to-hand exchange, witnessed that. So when an officer witnesses a law being broken, is he supposed to just turn his back and walk away and not do anything? No, he's supposed to enforce the law and go and do what he needed to do. And he did. And when he did that, and subsequent search warrant come after that, or knock and talk, we just actually went on the door, knocked on the door, and told the person there next to the door what had happened, and talked to him about the situation and what was going on there. Through consent search and or the search warrants that we do and things of that nature, by following up on these marijuana sales, we're going into these homes and we're finding methamphetamine, we're finding cocaine, we're finding codeine, we're finding these other things that were in these homes that not only they were selling marijuana, but they were selling other things too. And so if we just say we're not going to enforce marijuana, we're not going to look at that, we're not going to do anything with that, then look at all these other drugs and other things that we're missing in the communities. Look at all these other illegal activities. These marijuana sales, when we follow these up and go to these homes, we're finding stolen property. We're finding jewelry in these homes that people are trading for these drugs, that are doing these things. So it goes far beyond whether you like marijuana or whether you don't. It goes into other criminal activities, other events, other things that are happening that we're obligated to look into and follow up on. And so I hope that explains to people a little bit more about what we're doing out there.
I'm just curious. I know some states have actually legalized marijuana, like Colorado. What kind of effects has that had on the state? Positive, negative?
From everything that we're gathering, intelligence that we're gathering from these other states, from the law enforcement sources, are saying it's devastating to their states. It's ruining their states. And it's quite simply because of the reasons I just mentioned. It's not necessarily about the sale of marijuana. It's not necessarily about someone using marijuana. It's about the other criminal activity and the other things that go along with that. And what we're seeing is a lot of these places that's legalized marijuana, where they're doing marijuana farms and selling these things legally, now they've turned into fronts for other drug activities, for other things that are going on, for other criminal activities. So now where they were using marijuana, like we were talking about this other case, where they were using marijuana as their source to get into these places, to use these places, now it's legal. So now they've cut that avenue off of getting into these places. You look at it like this: is like when you have deputies that's out here on the highways that's patrolling, and they stop a car for speeding. Quite honestly, most of the deputies I have, if not all of them, and even myself, is not really interested in the fact that you're speeding unless you're going way excessive of the speed limit.
Right.
What they're stopping cars for and what they're looking for on that speeding are seatbelt violations or tail lights out or headlights out or things of that nature. If you notice, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a warning and sent on your way when you get stopped. But what those deputies are doing, they're looking at those sources and those avenues of stopping cars to look for drug dealers out there and to look for those people who are driving drunk and look for those people that's doing other things and hauling stolen property. And so that gives them an avenue to get that car stopped, to go out to look in that car and see if there's drug dealers in this car, if there's other things going on. And so we can't just stop cars at random because we think, hey, that looks like a drug dealer, let's stop him. We can't stop cars that way. We have to have reasons why we stop cars. And so if we say we're not going to stop any more speeders, if we're going to cut all stop sign violations and red light violations out, if we were to say that, then what's going to happen at that point is we're going to cut way down on the drug arrest because we're cutting out those avenues to get to those people. Well, the same thing has happened in these states with the marijuana. When they've legalized the marijuana, they've cut down a lot of these avenues for law enforcement to get into these other places.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. But I know there's always arguments on both sides. I'm guessing the one benefit would be the tax revenue that the sales of marijuana create, but there's always that, is the revenue worth what comes from the criminal side?
And you make the same argument if you wanted to for alcohol sales. I mean, it's literally not, well, I won't say literally the same thing, but it's very similar to the alcohol sales. You went through this area of prohibition, where all alcohol sales were illegal and banned, and then it went to the taxation of it and things of that nature. Well, if you're running a restaurant or you're doing your weekend drinking or whatever, you've not hurt anybody, not done anything, and you say, hey, I come home, I drink a beer, there's nothing going on here, so I'm all for alcohol sales. Well, what about that person that lost their family in a drunk driving accident?
Right.
What about that person who had an abusive father who beat the family? What happened to that person who had someone who drank alcohol that took all their money and gambled it away and got rid of it? What do you think these people's reaction is going to be to that? They're going to have a completely different view of alcohol and alcohol sales. And so your perspective on these things, whether it's marijuana, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, your perspective on these things is going to be from your point of view. Right. And that's why we have a democracy, and that's why we have laws and rules and regulations. And if you want the laws to change, then the view of the people have to change those laws. And if the majority of the people still view it as illegal, don't want it, don't want any part of it, then that's what we have to enforce.
All right. Very good. Yeah. All right. As we are seeing warm weather, what kind of safety tips would you like to offer folks that may be getting out and exploring the outdoors, the lakes and rivers? And
Lord, there's a lot of things. We could have done the whole 30 minutes on that. But one of the things is, of course, is, with the warm weather coming, is just taking care of yourself, not getting dehydrated. Drink plenty of fluids, especially when you get into gardening things. You're going out and exercising out in the heat now and going to the lakes and all those kind of things. Swimming in water is not enough. You got to actually be drinking water, intaking it. So you want to make sure that you drink plenty of water, get your body hydrated.
I've often wondered if coffee counts as water.
I don't think so. I might have some water in it, but I don't think it counts as drinking water.
I've been trying to justify that.
Right.
If I drink 3 cups of coffee in the morning, I've had plenty of water, right?
Well, you've got not only being hydrated, but you've got also your outdoor activities. If you talk about boating and recreational activities, you've got a whole series of safety tips and things to be concerned about there. Of course, boating and drinking, you don't want to do that. If you're out on the lakes, be sure you got life-saving equipment, life jackets, all those kind of things.
And as I understand it, if you are drinking and intoxicated on the water, it's a lot different than being like on land. Is that
as far as your reactions? And
right.
Things, yeah, it's different because you have to have quicker reaction times and things of that nature. That's why the boating laws are a little bit, the limits are less than they are driving because you don't want people out on the water. And, of course, when you think about this, if you're drinking and driving and you run off into a ditch and you hurt, and you're not hitting anybody else, you're not hurting, but you just run off into a ditch, you're going to sit there stuck, right? But if you're boating and drinking and you sink a boat, it's not the same thing.
Right.
Or you run into a bank, or you run into a log in the water, or you run into these things. It's not as simple as just sitting off the side of the road in a ditch somewhere till somebody finds you.
Right.
You could literally lose your life, or other people on that boat could lose their life. So that's why they're a little bit more strict on the lake and have to take a little bit more reaction times and things of that nature as far as turning the boat, distances, all those kind of things. So you got all those safety tips there to remember. If you're hiking and doing those outdoor activities, remember insects, snakes, all those kind of things.
That's one of my questions. If someone is outside and gets snake bit, what should they immediately do? How do they handle a snake bite?
Well, your basic first aid on that snake bite is to stop the flow of poison the best you can, so tourniquets and things of that nature. People always talked about, cutting the wound and sucking the blood out and all those kind of things. That does help if it's immediate, but once that gets into the stream and starts getting into the system, your best first aid tip at that point is to tourniquet and to cut that off. But also remember, you can't, if it's your leg or your arm, you can't tourniquet that down where there's no blood flow whatsoever and leave it there.
Right.
Even though it's releasing poison, at times you've got to release that to let some blood flow and then tighten it back up again so you don't damage limbs, damage nerves, all those kind of things. But the best first aid tip on snake bites is get to a doctor, get to the hospital as quick as possible. That's the number one thing, or get an ambulance to you as quick as possible. If you've been snake bitten, try to identify that snake if possible. If you can kill that snake or have someone else kill that snake, kill it so it can be identified at a later time if need be. Snakes are so easily confused whether they're poisonous or not poisonous, and people that's not familiar with those snakes, they see a brown snake and they don't know whether it's a copperhead or a water moccasin or whether it was a garden snake or what it was.
I can't tell them apart.
And so a lot of people that's not familiar with those and don't know what to look for, when they get to the hospital, the doctor says, well, you know what kind of snake? And they may not know the difference whether it's poisonous or non-poisonous. So if you have somebody that can kill that snake, it's better to kill that snake so it can be identified and people know how to treat that.
Can people die from the poison from the snake?
Depends on which one it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Now they can. Rattlesnakes are, of course, in our area are the most venomous. They're the most deadly snake in our area. Copperhead coming in second. Copperhead has a little bit longer reaction time, as you have a little bit more time to get to the doctor, a little bit more time to get treated. But a lot of times it's like, my dad used to raise hunting dogs, and I remember him saying all the time with his dogs that got snake bit, I remember him saying it depends on where they get bit.
Right.
A dog, a lot of times if it gets bit in the face or the neck, it has enough loose skin that it can swell up. And a lot of times the dog's life will not be in danger, but if that dog was to get bit somewhere like a leg or a stomach or something like that, it's got a better chance of dying just in the location of where it got bit. Right. So people are no exception. They're no different. So even though rattlesnakes are very dangerous and you can very well die from a rattlesnake bite, you need to get to the doctor very, very quickly. If that happens, tourniquet it off, do what you can to buy you some time to get there. Copperhead bites are a little bit different. You can still die from a copperhead bite, but you got a little bit more time to get to a doctor and get you some treatment. So it's a little bit different than that.
All right. Some good advice, and we appreciate that. I think that's the first time I've had an in-depth conversation about snake bites on the radio.
Right. I don't like snakes. Everybody that knows me knows that I don't like snakes.
I'm not a fan either.
Yeah.
And some people just absolutely adore them and have them as pets. But
well, I'll tell you a
that's not
funny
me.
little thing that I think some of your viewers might like to hear. When I was pastor at Vengeance Creek at the church out there, we were having Bible school one year, and the kids were walking down the steps, and one of them screamed, started running back, and the flower bed that went next to the steps, they saw a snake in it. And so there was a guy there at the church that got in there, and he got the snake out, and he killed it, and he threw it off in the creek and all those kind of things. And it was washing away down the creek, and I was just freaking out at that point because I didn't like snakes. And he was making fun of me because of he didn't bother him,
right?
You know. And so I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to make one thing very clear while I'm pastor here at Vengeance Creek. I said, I don't really mind whether you lay on hands and pray for healing. I really don't mind if you speak in tongues. I really don't mind if you do all these kind of things. But the first snake I see, I'm out of here. We will have no snake handling. That's just all there are to it. And, of course, everybody died laughing, when I said that. But that's just the way I feel about them. I don't like them, don't like being around them, don't want to see them, don't want to touch them. I caught one snake in my life, and I swore to the good Lord if I ever got that snake unwrapped off my arm and got it down in the thicket, I would never touch another one. And so far, I've never touched another one since then.
All right. Well, Sheriff, thank you for being with us here on Mondays, and we will do this again next week, same time, 11:05 on Mondays here on WKRK. And
we'll see you then.
Have yourself a great afternoon.
You too.
All right. It's WKRK in Murphy, North Carolina, cable TV channel 25, worldwide at country.am, 105.5 FM, and we figure out where I am on the program log here. And I need to tell you that this weather forecast is brought to you next by Carpet Mart.